Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our publishing and coaching services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. Today, we're being joined by Sharon Turnoy, author of Sitting on a File Cabinet Naked with a Gun, True Stories of Silicon Valley CEO Assistants. Sharon, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Paul.
And I gotta say, we've done over 100 plus episodes, and that is by far the most unique title that we've had.
Thank you. Yeah, well, there's a funny story behind it.
Well, are you ready? Why don't you go ahead and share it?
Share it with you.
Share it, please. I'd love to hear it.
That was, I was working with two very proper, very well-dressed, well-groomed women who were CEO assistants, and that's kind of the typical MO of women who are in that position, and I say women because it's almost all women. And they would never do anything scandalous, right? So we had been searching. I was their ghostwriter. We'd been searching for a title, and that line, sitting on a file cabinet naked with a gun, was part of a story that I got from one of the people I was interviewing for the book. And she said it as part of the story. And I said, ladies, I found the title. And I told them, and they were just shocked. Oh, we couldn't possibly use that. I mean, it has the word naked in it and gun. And I said, do me a favor, just go home and bounce it off your family and friends. And they came back to the next meeting and said, all right, you're right. Nobody will ever forget that title. So that was the title we went with.
Excellent. Well, I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and dig in with the questions. And our first one is this. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
Know your target audience. Make sure you figured out who it is you're trying to reach, and write for them, not for yourself.
And what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
Well, today I'd say one of the hardest, if not the hardest, is making the decision whether to go independent or traditional. And subcategories of those. If you're going to go independent, are you really going to try to do it all yourself, or are you going to go with what I consider like a hybrid publisher that does some of it for you? And if you're going traditional, are you going to go straight to a publishing house, or are you going to try to get an agent? So just figuring out how you want to get published, I think, is the hardest decision you have to make, because if you make the wrong one for your particular book and mode of working and all of that, that could put you really behind schedule.
For the book that we were talking about a moment ago, did you go traditional on that, or was that self?
It actually was, I would consider a hybrid. It was a company that did the printing and the formatting and that kind of thing for us, but we did all the writing. And because I have a background teaching English fundamentals and have done a lot of editing, I did the editing for the book as well as the writing. So we did all the writing and editing ourselves, but they printed it, they made it available electronically for download, and they did some marketing of it to different bookstores and publishing, not bookstore, but online book outlets like Amazon.com, etc. So I'd say it was a hybrid, but leaning towards self-publishing.
And you mentioned they did a little bit of marketing, so what was that exactly?
Getting it picked up by different online booksellers, but that was pretty much the extent of it.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit more about marketing. So please share a marketing strategy that you've used in the book launch that worked well.
Although I didn't have much to do with the marketing of the past book, it's an area I've been studying for about a year now, and have made some, formed some opinions about what I think will work. And one of the things that I have read over and over again, and that I believe, is to have a platform, an author platform. And by that I mean a website, and from that website you do most of your outreach to try to drum up interest and set an anticipatory tone so that people are looking forward to the book. So I think the website is a really important one. Somewhere to do have a newsletter to keep your fans and hopeful fans informed and posted on the progress towards when the book is going to come out. If it's a nonfiction book, a place to put articles that you've written yourself or that have to do with the topic, and maybe even a forum, certainly a blog.
And prior to recall, you were mentioning some strategies that you guys used for the Silicon Valley book, and I wanted to ask if you could share that again on the show, because from what it sounds like, the ladies that were part of your book, they had some very innovative strategies that they utilized.
Sure. The book was part of a progression for them to move from strictly trading time for money, which is working all kinds of hours for CEOs to earn an income, and they wanted to move from there into more training and coaching. So they were setting up courses through the local UC Extension and some of the that's the local university extension program and some of the adult ed and junior college programs to train aspiring admins, and especially train low-level admins to become high-level, high-earning admins. So they wanted to launch their own businesses where they would be sought-after speakers who were paid, and hold courses and ultimately webinars where they could earn passive income. So there was a built-in market as far as a textbook was concerned. This book has been used as a textbook in their training and their coaching of individuals. And besides that market, there was also the National Organization of Administrative Assistants. That was a built-in market that they could market to. In addition, each of the women that I interviewed to get their stories, it was about 27 women, they each had their own companies to help market the book too. So some companies bought a copy for every administrative assistant in the company. And when you're talking about a huge company like Cisco, for example, that's a lot of books to sell. Since it's a specialized market, it has a limited audience, but the numbers of people in that profession are big, and it was recommended by some of the executives who read it that executives should read this too, not just their assistants.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, because there's a lot of great strategies involved with that, and especially for those that want to actually take their book and use it to build a course or program or webinar, any types of those great back-end type of offerings with it. Well, let's talk about your favorite book. So what is your favorite book, and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
This book is actually a book of poetry, and it became a play as well. Has a long title also. Not that I always like or write long titles, but these just happen to have them. It's called For Colored Girls. And the full title is For Colored Girls Who Have Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough. and it was written by a woman named Ntozake Shange, so an African name. And what I love about the book is no matter when I pick it up, I always get something new from the lines that I read. It's definitely for a female audience, a grown woman's audience, and it's about the struggles we go through as women, especially in relationships with significant others, with our families, our children, our bosses, and it's a very intimate, personal book. I find it motivational. I find it helpful to remember that I'm not alone in whatever it is I happen to be going through or struggling with at the time. But it's a very personal book. It's short. I can't hang on to it. Anyone I've ever told about it wants to borrow it, and then I never see it again.
And for a final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
My favorite quote currently is, "Be yourself, everyone else is taken." And that's by Oscar Wilde. And I think why it's my favorite quote right now, or has been for a few years, is the notion that it's just clever. For one thing, Oscar Wilde was a master of being clever. So everyone else is taken. You can't be anyone else. They're all taken. And being yourself is the smartest thing to do anyhow. There's been a lot of talk the last few years about the word authenticity and how important it is to be authentic. It's almost a cliche now. But who else really can you be, right? And be the most that you can be, the most successful, the most productive. It's what makes you different that's interesting about you. So I like that as a reminder to myself not to try to be like anybody else.
And that is a great quote.
Thank you. I like it.
Well, Sharon, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
Well, my website is a perennial work in progress, so I'm not going to send anybody there. Probably the easiest thing to do is to find me on LinkedIn, and I'm just under my name, Sharon Turnoy. On LinkedIn, it's got a list of the kinds of positions I've held. I was a writer in business for Silicon Valley high-tech corporations for over 20 years. So there's a lot of reference to those positions. It also has some samples of my work and the different kinds of things I've done the last few years while I've been freelancing. So I would recommend to go to linkedin.com and then just look me up by name.
Well, Sharon, thank you once again for being on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Paul.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how to get your book published with a proven system that works, grab a free copy of my book at getpublishedpodcast.com.